are you?
Good, thanks.
Are you having problems hearing?
Yeah. Hey, Patrick.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We're good.
Hey, Lee, what's up? Welcome aboard, bro.
Yeah, thank you. How's it going?
Glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
We need more people.
Did you just drive down from New Hampshire?
No,
Oh,
Sierra.
Sierra,
Yeah.
yeah. With Shelley Amsterdam.
I have to work in the morning, went to the gym, and then went down.
Zero members yet?
I haven't met a lot of
We had a
them.
new start at one company that Jeff asked me to meet, so I met him. And then,
For this group? Is she trying to still? Maybe
But
she
it's nice
is.
to have
A whole lot, I don't know.
that
Yeah, I
perspective
had known them.
of a company your size, just really important.
Yeah, yeah.
And Wendy over at Foundation is perfect now. Having him and that Novartis, he's good.
Right.
It's really cool. It's the first year that we did this.
Yeah, not
did
so
one-
So you've been on this for a while?
Yeah, this is my second year.
Okay.
But the first year, we did
Or at least
HR focused
Yeah, because a lot of it's.
things that I wanted to do, now they're letting us do it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, before it was, I think,
Right.
more of a methodology of following what
I've heard of it.
Well, surprising.
big picture
Small,
was.
but,
We wanted this to be
we
about
are a
that.
drug development consulting
They,
firm,
the
so we
biggest
actually
thing
work with a
was
lot
that
of
HR
those
people
companies
want
who
to talk about
development. So we'll actually
We
figure out all
try,
those things.
but they're like,
And we'll actually.
then also
put work
things
in
change.
progress.
Yeah.
Now we
Yeah.
can.
Oh, God.
No,
you
It depends kind of.
I
on
know.
the client it is, where they're based.
Hey, Barb, and you?
Skill set and stuff.
Yep, yeah, I resigned from
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm our operations part, so I'm get involved in the science or heads of the scientific part of the sort of certain.
Ah, yes, that's right, that's our business.
Okay.
Consulting or.
She kind of took over.
Yep.
It's kind of hard to do
All the four of us, you know,
Do all that and actually
Yeah.
manage the work. we'll write
Myself.
down and help
It's like you gotta do this,
manage
it's not-
the
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Right.
And we started a last company as well.
I still go to some of the
I know.
Trying to start.
Oh, wow.
So kind of a bit of a service business.
Yeah, I'm psyched.
Kind of a.
And I really think last year we had some really cool events, and if we can start to do some stuff specific
Hi, Raj.
for our
Yeah.
site.
You're not busy at all, right?
That's good.
Actually, we just had a list go out today.
How are you?
And I'm psyched that Wendy gets to work with one of my good friends too.
What's that?
And I'm psyched that Wendy gets to work with one of our friends as well.
I've known Wendy for so long.
Have you really?
Oh, yeah, I've known her for
I never heard of her before.
probably 10 years.
You know, I get caught up. I don't.
She was an account manager.
Right.
She was placing, yeah.
You know the website? Oh, gosh. It's funny how I think. Yeah. She's work with Sarah.
You know, I think that's, yeah, I like Sarah too.
Oh, no.
So personal, you know, Church Street.
Is that right?
We placed like 30 people.
Other applications go after.
All full time.
That's no problem for sure.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, you don't want to do that.
All of that.
A lot of companies.
Their idea was
I was just on that board as chairman.
It will not be if we'll have.
for home.
So I get to know
He's a good person.
He has folks who.
TSC wanted to do it.
Initially were folks who were either schizophrenic, bipolar, or bipolar, as a class, who's kind of control some of the.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Ken, you get your Ken's. Congratulations.
Hide that.
Ken R.
Ken A, Ken B, Ken
Right.
right? Yeah.
And even still
That's
the-
fine.
with the
Rob
current
Tolman.
standards.
Yeah, I give Rob a lot of
So
credit
there's
for
a second
hanging in
generation
there.
music products out there, which, the incidence of TTE is a lot less. The thing is, there are metabolic
Well, the whole thing was
so cardiovascular issues, diabetic issues. So you don't get TD, and it's some of the other ones, so. Gave you some.
I would have
that you reintroduced first.
So I have much more like, the first one to go down, was not the introduction.
Pill.
I'm a big
So,
believer
kind of prevent the onset.
in being specific.
So
Less
right now,
exact
well,
medical
phase 2 trial going on.
Sometimes.
Yeah, they're like.
It's really interpret your relationship that way.
Real hard experience.
Yeah, no, it's exciting though.
No, it is really good. So,
You said you're going to another.
I try to go on lunch. Just doing a lot of protocol. So Michael Jackson overdose.
What's the difference?
It's actually congenital.
Eventually you're gonna do something. You'll figure this yourself.
Surgery.
And I think you could get
Well,
great people.
you know, there's gotta be some changes.
It's a really unstable.
Right, we should.
Yeah.
This is probably experienced.
I can mix it up.
Not working.
I can only imagine
You're on the inside, you
Shelf
feel
life,
it.
there's bacteria,
And that's
there's
what's
infection,
You're
there's
so honest.
injections. There's a lot of throwaways. So we've worked with my colleagues on the side of the TDA disinfection. We work with them and have come up with formula that you know is clear, shelf stable, low cost, no injection site pain. Those dogs, the dogs stayed asleep, they got up, they started walking, so right, that's a pretty good indication too. You know, so it's constant. We're looking to upgrade. That's part of it. And actually, that's trying to as well. That's just it. Yeah, exactly. None of it is easy.
Yeah, once you start going back,
and forth
that's what money really goes.
work.
Everybody's expenses, we're a good time.
But a lot of my collaboration.
That's the
Goals and ultimately
That's the-
you have to have.
I can get candidates there, right?
So do that. I really do
Work
think,
execution.
I really believe you'll do that.
So,
Totally.
uh,
I really don't. Who has a digger discovery machine?
Hopefully we get form in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Get some smart people.
Just hard, we want to see collaboration with organizations, building trust with one another. Who wants to do what?
I'm glad you're telling me this. You're not telling me something I don't know.
Together effectively.
It's like that autonomy.
Investment thing, somebody's going to give up some equity or less equity. So a lot of these things are relevant to our university.
It's not very.
It's hard.
I mean, I feel like a lot of those.
It really is.
You know, I think Rob did the best he
No, it's true, right.
could have done. He was good, he was patient.
Figured out what, how to have a talk in a way that
The only.
at the same time.
Without paying for it, for the most part, but even still.
Well, and once
So a
you
lot of
start
that
forming
side is not
Done.
what you probably.
It's like my wife, I can tell you, which is
They're all
weird.
different.
And I'm like, she's like, I'm like, you're fine.
I should turn this off. You know, you'll be some right down, these will be reports from behind the.
It's not about meaning, it comes from a mutually satisfactory solution.
Overall.
And it was hard to get that spot, that's the one.
That's why.
Really?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Hi, it's Michelle Harrison online.
Oh my God.
Hi, Michelle, we'll get started
You're a
soon.
nice person. You're sweet.
Okay, thanks, Susan.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
This is Holly. Holly.
Hi, nice to meet you. Are you EU?
No, I feel like I'm sorry, I'm holding against her.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes, you guys have Lee, who's joining the HR group.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Hello.
For the weekend, see everybody, so she gets home.
Same here.
Hello. I think a lot of people have very strong opinions, but I don't say we want to go back or when. So.
How you doing? Very good.
How you doing?
Pretty good, thanks.
That's good.
Yeah. You must have said negative. Yeah, you gotta fight for all that. Very high.
There's not a call in this afternoon.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is as well?
Oh, yeah.
Because they have.
When she says back to work.
It's always best in person.
Yeah, okay, if you're not fishing, then you've got to look. Lucas said should be 60. She's flying and supposed to get her.
It is. It sucks. Because I'm sure. It shouldn't be my room to the kitchen, but it is. It's a cleaning.
Consulting for big four firms is just nothing like. That's what it is. You're just on a plane or you're out of town 4 days. Hopefully it's not more. I don't know, just 4 days.
So single-handedly put on the.
Wow. That's good. It varies. You know what? I've seen 30 people in this room. I've seen like 8.
That's
So.
Yeah.
That's not it stinks. It stinks. It's no fun.
Actually, you know what? I was in the phone.
Did you guys met yet?
No, I'm Lee Merrill.
Oh, I'm Haywan, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How's it going?
Very good.
Welcome.
Global forums.
So where are you
So there's one like.
We're in Watertown.
Okay.
Yeah, right over Arsenal Mall.
Okay.
Thinking about going global.
Ground Zero back in the day.
You know, I much prefer
We're not thinking about going global.
Cambridge.
Yeah, it's
All right, I'll take this.
This year they're gonna start the first one.
Just was kind of so long.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
it's
have 3 good
Where do you-
people that are lined up.
North Shore.
Good global moderator. Definitely somebody we
Yeah.
have to, if you work in kind of pharma, set up global.
So you do the mountain hiking?
Unfortunately.
That's brutal.
I don't know.
So are you an early person though? You try to beat
I
that
do-
traffic? Because
yeah.
I've seen that traffic. I go to Branford, Connecticut, because we have an
Okay.
office down there.
Okay.
So when I'm going out west, boy, it's
Oh,
bad.
there.
Going into the summer,
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I kind of try to do it based on my meetings. So if I have meetings that are gonna go like really late in the day, then I'll try to like.
Hey, good job yourself.
For the most part,
Yeah, I like to meet you too.
It's like sometimes I just snooze that one too many times. And it's 10 minutes of sleep is gonna cost me 30 minutes. Yeah, but you know,
Yeah.
when you learn what's going on, it's like, oh, 10 more minutes sounds good.
At least you're a good artist. It's a good choice, be pretty small.
Literally across the street.
Oh,
200. So yeah, so I go down 10 floors across the street and then up 8 up here. So it's very, like, if the blinds are open, I can even look at it and be like, are they starting? All right, well, maybe let me get over. Yeah, I still have my old company anyone.
Folks. What
Yeah.
were you before?
Self-Mental,
Self
the
is,
flagship
the-
portfolio.
That's it. Just about like the outside. Yeah.
Any of your associate director, is that what I saw?
Yeah. So you've been at it for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, 2.5 years. Only about 115 right now, but we're probably growing.
Yeah, HR1 I call it, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a woman who's, I call her business partner, she was a business manager.
Okay.
You go up the that's right.
Okay, yeah. And I reorganized C Corp too. It's just a lot of, just it's a cardiovascular structure. It's all profits interests, it's different.
Yeah. No, but I feel like people would normally switch in the other direction.
Well, they did it for the.
Okay.
It's good. It's a lead photo for.
So I support 2 disease areas. I have autoimmune science. So I'm like their
Senior
HR
business partner.
So they
So you do everything.
Yeah.
So you'll have a compensation group support you.
Exactly.
You'll have a benefits
Staffing,
group support
yeah.
you, staffing, and you're the interface with all managers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Every day it's me new. See my practice. That's good because we also work Yes. We've been on page that. Okay, now check. I know that thing now. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing so like the HR team is about.
So who's ever online and listening, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, great. Pete is
Yep,
just.
I can hear you.
Okay. Pete is just finishing up a call, and he'll be in very shortly. So a couple of minutes, we'll get started.
Okay.
Everybody's confused. Small end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, keep everybody guessing.
I'm amazed at those kids that are there. At least that's my freshman year, maybe halfway through sophomore year, I figured it out.
Yeah.
That might still make it small.
Keep through solar. They did.
Yes.
I've been.
Oh, I know, I noticed 12, I just.
At some point with our files, it will be
Oh, your dad, yes.
Yeah, I guess we'll also take these water. Now it's supposed to like smell. People are like
Yeah, you can.
we'll just do it.
I'm in good.
As usual.
I just crossed a little bit.
You just, you know,
How
come
my
off
place
the,
is not incredible.
Hi. John Rath. Hi, John. Nice to meet you. No, great face. Had a chance to sit on this corner before. You guys are covered. Yeah. Sneak out early. That's why I had this corner. Me
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, how you doing?
All right.
See you.
Good to see you as well. It's been busy.
Yeah. Running around. It's nuts.
How are you?
Trying to get some
Hey.
How's it going?
Nice to see you.
compound plates stripped
Nice to
down.
see you
We got a
too.
collaborative that wants to screen some compounds for us. So, It's good.
Helping us with,
It's Jason, you know, and he has, you know, he has his own photos, take
Exciting.
calls.
Seriously. We'll call this.
Press release.
Yeah, it's not gonna
Okay. Dosed our phase person.
That was so much fun.
First patient, phase 2.
yeah, that picture, we were like, this is the cutest picture ever.
He had such a good time. He
That's
truly,
awesome.
truly loved it. Pardon me?
What a great event for him.
He goes to Rare Disease Day, and he,
That's an indication that people are hurting out there.
hopefully, actually, no, he won't, because I'm taking him out, he's been out of school so much, he will not, he's trying to get the government.
Get started.
They both.
Nice to meet you, Raj.
One little housekeeping detail. The microphones pick up everything, so if people can like talk one at a time, that would be great, especially for the people who are listening in. Could I get everyone who's on the call to introduce themselves, so let us know who's here? Michelle, you want to start? Hi, who's on the call? Hello, I know you were there. I heard it before.
Hi, Susan. This is JT Vaidya.
JT, hi, how are you?
Good. We can barely hear you, by the way. Hi, Susan. This is JT Vaidya.
Hi, I can hear you, JT.
Barely hear you, by the way.
Is this better if I stand under the microphone?
So that microphone there, because I know when I was on the phone last month, it was hard to hear as well, unless you were right near the microphone.
Hi, this is Horatio Gabra. I'm from BioWin.
Hi, Horatio. Can you hear me well? Yeah, let me just try this.
Gabra from BioWin.
All right, can everyone hear me if I speak from this microphone?
Yes.
That's fine. So JT,
Susan,
can you hear better?
Susan, this is Rob. Yep, we can hear really good. I'm sure you'll remind people to mute in a minute, but this is Rob Goldstein from ALS TDI.
Oh, hi Rob, thanks for joining.
Susan, this is Rob. Yep, we can hear really good. I'm sure you'll remind people to mute in a minute, but this is Rob Goldstein from ALS TDI.
Hi, Susan. It's Michelle Harrison from Vertex. I'm hoping when people mute, that'll take care of the echo as well.
There's only one microphone. Our IT guy is going to be working on this, hopefully. All right, so we have JT, Rob, Horatio, Michelle. Anybody else with us?
Maud Casey from BD Finance is also here.
Oh, great. If you guys on the phone calls can mute your phones when you aren't talking, that may help with the echo. You want to try that? Maybe we can hear better. I'll just go around the room really quickly. Patrick Marshall from HR is here. We have a couple of new co-chairs here. Lee Merrill, Niels Birmingham, Ewan Small, Rob Sudo, Steve Riesinger, Mark Cody, Holly Collette. We have John Riley, Dick Enkelman, Raj Rajur, and we have Roger Frechette, Kendall, and me. Well, let's get started. First things first, we had some new co-chairs to introduce. Luba, are you on the line? Luba Greenwood has just joined the EU working group. I'm happy to have her. I apologize for this picture, Holly.
I like that picture.
I love it. Holly Collette from Charles River is our new CRO CMO group co-chair. And Lee Merrill from Forma, our new HR co-chair. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Okay, here's why we're here today. We're going to look at where we are, what's in place for the Global Series forums. And we're going to talk about where we need the most urgent support and help with speakers, moderators, content, whatnot. And then talk about follow-on deep dives from each of the working groups for the Global Series. Then we're going to go into some, and get those on the calendar, because now that we've scheduled the big global forums, the calendar's opened up. So we're going to have a breakout and do some planning on these follow-on deep dives and standalone topics, and then action items and adjournment. All right, here's where we are. Things have changed a little bit since we last met. March 20th, the world is small. That's in place. Mark Cody, Steve Riesinger, and Angela Dobroglosser are on that. April 10th is Europe 101. Maud, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Oh, excellent. Maud Tessier and Konstantin Linik are leads on that. May 13th is Asia 101, And JT and Luba Greenwood are on leads on that. Latin America. This was going to be Southern Hemisphere 101, and we had the resources to do Latin America right now. And Horacio Caparan, who's also on the line, and John Riley are leads on this, and this has come together really nicely. And as something to think about, Africa and the Middle East possibly for September. That's another conversation. So here's where we are right now. The world is small. Mark, you want to give a brief of where we are with this right now?
Sure, so we have all of our panelists lined up. So Pedro Arbadola from Monitor at Deloitte, Dane Edward, who was formerly with Genzyme, and then Marcus Wormuth from H3 Biomedicine, all who have international experience. The one thing that we don't have for this is our moderator. Not that that's critical, because we have a really good group of panelists, but we are looking for a moderator who might potentially have worked in big pharma and either was influential in establishing their global strategy or potentially implementing kind of the operational rollout of global strategy. We've probably reached out to 5 or 6 companies, including Biogen, Vertex, Cubist, and maybe 1 or 2 others, and been unsuccessful getting any of their executives. So if anybody has any recommendations of kind of a corporate or international strategic type who's led global expansion, we'd love to see if we can get them as a moderator. Otherwise, we might just look within our ranks and have one of our working group or Foundation Advisory Board members kind of do the moderation.
We've reached out to EMD as
Yep.
well. So we're waiting to hear back from their new president.
Okay, great. Yeah, that would be perfect as well. So I think in the end, if we don't get a pharma type, you know what, we can probably handle the moderation, but it'd be nice to kind of have someone else maybe jump in that has the international experience.
Yeah, if we reach out, I mean, I'm sure if another speaker wouldn't be bad either as well. All right, so that's where our need
And
is.
Susan, I'm sitting here with Steve as well. I was thinking that maybe next week we actually look to have, since that's March 20th, it's just under a month away, to have our kind of pre-planning call with them. Yeah. So that way they can just work on their slides and their case study in the next few weeks.
Sounds good.
Yeah, because we'd like to market, we've already put a flyer together with the information that we have. We'd like to market the global series as a whole. We did last year. All right, next. Europe 101. Mo, do you want to give an update on where we are with this?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So we've made some good progress as well from our end in the EU 101. So we have, I think, most of our panelists lined up. And our moderator. So our moderator is going to be Mark Luchtenberger, which many of you already know. He's currently the CEO of AcuSphere. And we have currently 4 speakers confirmed. One is Bjorn Karensen, who's a consultant and board of director at Clyfo, which is a Norwegian, I believe, consulting firm. Also Peter Dansbo, who's also from Clifo. We have Dave Gilbert, who's an advisory board member at NDA, which is a UK consulting firm. And we also have Scott McGuire, who's the CEO of Zenetics Biosciences, and he was recommended by Mark as somebody that would have interesting things to say based on his background, but also where this company is currently going in terms of their strategy. And I think we're trying to line up potentially one more panelist. We're waiting to hear back from Klaus Becker, who is at Merrimack, and he is head of market access and value. So we're waiting to get confirmation from him, but I think otherwise we're set with our moderator and speaker. And the date has been confirmed, which is April 10th from 8 to 10 a.m. And I think in terms of next steps for us, it's depending on what happens with Klaus over the next week or so, we're going to try to schedule a prep call probably for the week of March 17th. So I can definitely follow up and get that scheduled.
And I think, Maud, I updated the planner document with everything that I know right now, and everything that you've told me. So that should be
Yes.
the most recent thing. All right, great. Thank you. Next, we have Asia 101. JT, I know you're online. Can you hear me? JT? Luba? Well, here's where we need some help. We're looking for speakers, moderators, again, same model, someone from possibly the advisory community to give an overview. This is kind of the format we've been looking at, an overview of the region. And again, this is one of our regional buckets. And then people representing companies that are doing global business, market outreach, all aspects. Help with this, Luba and Luba Greenwood and JT are the co-chairs on this effort. If you have ideas, yes.
So Susan, I think it's Peter Lee Armand is with Staff Guru, and
Yes.
they're headquartered in India. And I know they actually have one of their vice presidents who runs their Boston office as a family member of the founders. She's based here. I don't know if you've reached out to them or not.
I have a phone call tomorrow with them, so.
Good. All right.
There's that. And there are a couple of others floating around. We're still in the process of phone calls, so thank you for that. Again, anybody have any suggestions, ideas for that one? Again, Asia, it's Korea, it's China. We have someone from Kaba, we are following up with now, so if you can think of specific names that you have connections with, forward them as soon as possible. We can get this one, again, it's in May, but still, time gets shorter than you think. All right, next is Latin America 101. We have Horatio Caparan on this and John Riley. John or Horatio, you want to give a brief overview of where we are?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, we have a very, very nice group of people lined up. Pedro Polera, he's the Director of Strategy in Monitor Deloitte. I think Peter Rabert contacted him, and so this is going to be his second appearance now to provide an overview of the region which is highly segmented, fragmented. And then we have four speaker executives. Marcelo Cheresky, he has had several senior positions at Genzyme. He was the general manager for Mexico, and then the regional vice president of Asia Pacific and Latin America, and currently the vice president for Latin America for Synageva Biopharma. We also have Jorge Guerra coming from New York. He was in Biogen for a number of years in charge of clinical development, and he indicated that he will be providing a view on how to do clinical development in the region, which will fit very nicely with the other profiles, other people we have with similar experience, including also IP. John is looking into an expert in the IT field. We have also Federico Lerner coming all the way from Buenos Aires. He has been for a number of years the Senior Director of Operations Latin America for PRA International, and he's in charge of product registration across the region, so he'll be able to provide a nice view about the challenges and opportunities of doing product registration in different markets. And he also worked before for Parexel and PPD. And we also have Rogerio, and he will provide a deep view on Argentina. Rogerio Vivaldi, he is currently the president and CEO of Minerva Neurosciences. He also has a long experience at Genzyme. He was the general manager in Brazil, and then he held different senior positions in different therapeutic therapeutic areas and divisions. So we have people across the board in Latin America in terms of a broad view of the region, and then specific expertise in some of the major markets, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and also in other countries.
So we've got the region covered. This is just an extraordinary panel. John, you put together, I guess, the description. I saw that. Thank you very much for sending that over. Do you want to just give a brief overview of what we're looking at?
Sure. I think Horatio already captured it. The only other aspect there is in terms of a profile. The notion here is if you're a U.S. mid to smaller size company, you're thinking about either running clinical trials or trying to get a medical device or a drug approved, what are sort of the IP commercial strategies that you would need to think about as you think about the region. So that profile is hopefully coming from someone that has specific experience from a legal perspective that can round out the great panel that, quite frankly, Horatio has done a tremendous effort pulling this group together. So that's essentially it. So we're trying to come at it from several different angles, and obviously we're going to try to tease out the BD angle, which is if you're a US-based company, who's doing deals with Latin America-based companies, trends, and essentially asking the question why in terms of tapping on or growing emerging markets.
So and we've got June 17th pretty much pinned down with that. I think we need one call just to confirm all of that, but this looks like it's a slam dunk. And again, maybe September, Africa and the Middle East. Again, but this is another conversation. For right now, the most urgent needs we have is to think about the speakers for our fast approaching The World is Small forum, and then develop content for deep dives from each of the working groups to speak to the global theme, and of course standalone topics. So do we need topics? We've all talked about so many of them. Hurdles, product protection, regulatory obstacles, reimbursement, financing, issues for CROs and outsourcing, marketing and partnering opportunities, cultural divides, translating marketing. Rob, you're up there, aren't you? Can you hear me? Oh.
Yes, I can. I was just thinking as you were speaking about them.
Great. So there are tons of opportunities here. What we should be looking at right now is planning deep dives on the framework that we already have in place. I think that we've got a very good framework in place for exploring global opportunities. So I know some of the groups are meeting regularly, planning. Does anybody want to start talking about potential topics?
Hey Susan, it's Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I can see you. I'm watching you online. I'm waving back at you. You can't see me. I was wondering if the state of Massachusetts and MassBio still had like sister relationships with a couple of different countries. I know in the past we've had trade situations of Israel and with Ireland, and I'm wondering if we couldn't look at those for some synergy in the state to kind of grow this forum.
I certainly think that that's a possibility.
Well, Pete's involving many of our foreign delegation members. Unfortunately, Pete isn't here right now. I think he's planning to join us after he finishes the call.
He's on a call. But we have, for each of, well, certainly for the first one and for each of the regional buckets, we will have foreign agencies here represented with tables, with materials, basically, to bring the world here. So yes, that's to your point. They will be here. Again.
Well, I'm trying to think. For example, like Elan Pharmaceuticals recently sold the rest of its. I forget which way it went with a drug with Biogen recently. So I wonder if there could be some crossover there. But it'd be interesting to try to, highlight some of our great trade associations worldwide here in the state through this effort and give them an opportunity to kind of get some exposure.
So maybe a deeper dive off of one of the buckets, one of the regional buckets? Is that something you'd be interested in taking a lead on and putting a little flesh on the bones?
Yeah, I'll message you some thoughts.
All right, great. CRO, CMO. It's a big world out there with a lot of opportunities. Let me see what I've got 2 minutes on it. What have we been thinking about? I know a lot of ideas have come across in previous conversations. Is what we're here. John?
So, just thinking about sort of the outsourcing coming from a manufacturing perspective. Rob, I think you mentioned Ireland. I mean, certainly we're aware of the wave of foreign direct investment that happened several years ago. I was just curious to know, with outsourcing and manufacturing, what's the current state of that, and sort of tying in the government incentives piece. I don't know if any of the forums look at specifically how governments are trying to attract U.S. Or manufacturing to their home countries. Just sort of know that it was a trend. Quite frankly, don't know much about it, but I think of Ireland as a great example that was very aggressive in getting pharma set up over there. Is that happening in other areas in a concerted way that is either successful or not?
I mean, Ireland, of course, they have no corporate tax.
So
it's a very simple way to do it. So
well, that's a great way. Is there anyone else offering that now?
Worked very well for them.
So government incentives is huge. It's a huge topic. Pete's here now. We're talking about having foreign agencies represented, and Rob was talking about sister relationships. Like Elan that sold drugs with Biogen. Rob, you want to elaborate on that a bit? Pete is here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Elan disposed or sold the rest of its rights, I guess, for $3.25 billion into Sabri. So I don't think it necessarily falls into the kind of the cultural challenges, but there is a great relationship with Ireland. There's a great relationship with Israel, and I think newer forming biotechs, which I know we're trying to target for membership, may not be aware of those and the success stories in them, and I'm sure that the governor probably would argue that the trade stuff probably played a role in the Elan deal, but we all have our opinions on that.
Regulatory obstacles, reimbursement. Reimbursement is huge. That's certainly a deep dive. What group would like to take something like that on? And certainly BD and legal and regulatory. Unfortunately, none of our legal and regulatory people are here. JT, you're here. Had you thought about regulatory obstacles? JT is not here. Well, there's further discussion on any of these topics. Can we get something going? What about, emerging markets, unmet medical needs? We've been talking about that as well. Where are they happening? How do you approach them? How do you find them? Something from the SEF community?
So I think ideally we'd like each working group to have a deeper dive that supplements the series, so we need involvement from the groups. I mean, I think this shouldn't be new. We've asked for this a bunch of times now.
Don't like the silence. I mean, these topics, if it's looking at drug discovery especially, I mean, these topics are not necessarily at the core of that. They're a bit, to some degree, a bit more political, some of them, like if you should have corporate taxes or not.
I think we're open to any, I think Susan hoped that this would be a conversation starter, but clearly much to the contrary.
I went through conversations. I went through conversations and notes, and I took a bit from here, a bit from there, and just threw it up here. This is wide open. Drug discovery, HR, everything. CRO, CMO, SEF. How do you keep things together when you have a facility overseas?
Within EU, we've been thinking about a couple of other programs, and I'm not sure whether they're necessarily deeper dives on global, although we can always position them as such. But some of it is around kind of perfecting your pitch. We've heard that before, but I mean, are you perfecting the pitch to go out to raise money? Or are you perfecting the pitch to go out there and partner? Or are you perfecting the pitch to go out there and do more globally? So I mean, there's an idea about perfecting your pitch. The other one is kind of, you know what, exit strategy and process. Exit could be, you know what, maybe looking to do something global, or maybe it's looking to do something domestic. I mean, at least within EU, I don't have much of a global view right now, but these are a couple of programs we might well deliver and build a little bit of global into it. So I just throw that out there as a suggestion, in terms of thinking about it, but you can't kind of say it's, oh, that's all global, because it's not. A lot of it's domestic.
That's absolutely fair. And the other part of this is, of course, you've got your EU topics that you know, that you want to bring forward and that we're absolutely delighted to have. The calendar is open. This series takes us through June. And there's a lot of room for elaboration from each working group. So,
But this goes through June, but we don't want this the only thing on the calendar. I mean, we hope that the groups will step up, and whether they do complement the series or not, that's okay.
That's fine.
We thought that because when we had that initial networking meeting around globalization, I mean, ideas were just coming off the ceiling, yeah. So we thought that there would be a lot of standalone opportunity. But if a group thinks that there's other topics that are, you know, important and timely, absolutely.
And again, those are the standalones, and most of the groups have been having regular meetings. In fact, HR were meeting directly afterwards to talk about the future events, future forum topics, and drug discovery. Yes.
No, I'm just sort of thinking why there is such silence. If you look at the membership, I mean, the majority of the members are, if you will, smallish, mid-size companies, which might not think globally as much as, of course, the big guys do. If you look at Lilly has moved quite a bit over to Shanghai, set up a reasonably big operation there. Novartis is doing the same to serve emerging markets and also then to tap into what everybody thinks is going to be the biggest market probably in not that many years in terms of China. But that's basically the Lilly, the Novartis, the Pfizer, with God, I shouldn't forget J&J and GSK as well. But when you're done with that list, do the rest of the membership worry too much about this? Most of us, at least, what I've been doing is been with smallish companies. I'm trying to sort of survive in town and find a partner that I don't have to spend 3 days going to this. So I'm just sort of, that's an explanation for the silence. Maybe this is not what we usually worry about.
Well, it came up, the Forum Advisory Board came up with this as a very important topic, and when we had the last meeting, people were very excited about it, and ideas were flying like bullets. So I think what we have in place for our series is a terrific series. But again, contribution doesn't necessarily mean a follow-on from the global series. It's what you're bringing from your own groups. Produce for forums, and that means regular meetings among yourselves, con calls with me to help develop the programs.
Maybe a better approach is, are there deeper dives that we think need to happen? So regardless of which working groups they come out of, are there ones that we think need to happen, and then we can try to plug in working groups that would fit around those? So like in that networking meeting, regulatory issues, Roger felt very strongly that there were, I remember this, that there were many, many different types of regulatory issues that would come up through the series. I mean, is that something that we should hit as a deeper dive?
If there's the working groups that see some specific categories that they want to get into, clearly you need to, the harmonization is increasing worldwide, but there's still things that you got to pay attention to. You're doing clinical trials, for example, in multiple different countries, and schlepping materials around the world is also a concern in various regions as well.
Might it be something around, because as Nils mentioned, we have a lot of kind of smaller, mid-sized biotechs. I mean, that's driving a lot of kind of the smaller economic kind of engine growth. But the thing is, a lot of times, they shouldn't be thinking about going global yet, because as Nils said, it might be easier to drive to a CRO over in Watertown or out in Westboro or something like that than trying to get some work done in China or India. Not to say that you can't probably get it done cheaper there, but you know what? It's going to be a lot harder to control it, and there's a lot of issues. So maybe it's about, as you're outsourcing your work, when do you need to think locally and when do you need to think globally? And so I think that's a real tangible topic that can benefit a lot of local biotech companies. I don't know the answers to it, but I think it'd be relevant to a lot of companies.
Yeah, that was part of the that outlook. The global perspective shouldn't be just about outsourcing, and for small companies, it shouldn't even involve outsourcing for just that reason. I had a company that outsourced everything locally, but we sold the company to an Australian company. So we kind of went backwards, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there's some, those two sides, business development internationally is something that small companies need to consider and probably need some help figuring out how to do. And working out that balance of where are you going to outsource? Is it going to go 17 time zones away or down the street?
Right. What are some of the advantages or disadvantages? Maybe some case studies. So it's outsourcing, when, where, and how. Maybe it's something like that as maybe the caption.
And we know that keeping it local is so important to our CRO community that this is an opportunity for them to really highlight and shine. So I think that's great.
Do you think that we necessarily need to have a deeper dive on it? Is it something we can supplement the main meeting with? Because it looks like maybe that panel isn't quite developed.
So I was going to make a similar point to what was just made here about, we constantly, I think of globalization as the U.S. kind of reaching out to the rest of the world, but we're more and more seeing the rest of the world reaching into the U.S. as well. And so it might be something for smaller companies, whether it's business development or partnership opportunities, to look at how do you work with companies that are established, bigger companies. I mean, just look at some of the deals that have been made over the last couple of years with Takeda taking over Millennium, and I forget who it is now that the Japanese company took over Avicia. There's been a lot of partnerships with overseas companies, looking either whether they're advancing their R&D or taking early stage drugs and picking those up by acquiring or partnering with U.S. companies. And so it's the same idea, but just reversed.
That's true. But case stories, case studies of that would be also another idea for a forum. Is everybody looking at the framework that I sent out before? Is that what you have in front of you? Should I put that up?
That's what
Let me just this up. Anybody see that kind of? Yeah, so this is what I sent out before. I mean, there could be any one of a number of deeper dives off of this. If it incorporated into the form as it exists, of course you can. That requires collaboration and thinking about that as we develop questions and talking points for speakers. I think Asia is pretty much a work in progress, although the rest of them we've got a pretty good handle on. Is that true? But again, getting forums, deep dives on the top, on the calendar, just for each working group, for your own disciplines. It's what it's about right now. And the calendar's open. Steve?
How many are we talking that we need? I mean, how many extra, what's on the calendar right now? How many slots are open?
We've got.
Can't have too many, right?
Can't have too many. Again, this is what we talked about at the beginning of this whole restructuring. It's not about quantity anymore. It's about really, really quality, excellent programming. So whatever it takes to do that. From each working group, 4 a year? We talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our calendar is pretty open, with the exception of this series. A lot of the focus has gone to the series, which is what we want, but we want to make sure that we offer some additional opportunities as well. So, yeah, so I don't know, if we can get 2, 3, 4 from each working group for the year, I mean, that's good. We want all the working groups to be represented, because last year we had some open areas that some working groups weren't represented. And so we did have some of the membership community asking for more of those deeper dives. I mean, obviously we know, I think the series was a great success, and we saw a lot of new faces, but people still do want that deeper dive, more expertise-specific content.
Patrick, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking from an HR perspective, hey, I don't know if I'm speaking for our team, the working group for HR, is that we're still meeting with our people, and so I'm a little reluctant to say do this, do that. But I can say, I'm sure, an issue that we can all agree on is that working with a multinational workforce for any company in our town is a challenge and an opportunity. And it does bring into different styles, right? And different sorts of styles and everything from what we've grown up with, what we're comfortable with, what one culture may, blending cultures together, I suppose, is really what I'm saying. Cultures and yet still having progress happen is something that we deal with all the time. In how many times do I work with companies who don't want to tell me that this person really needs to speak English perfectly because they don't want to write it down. But it's a big deal, communication. Or that it's not a big deal in this particular case, or H-1B transfers, or working with the government and understanding what the current legal rules are for making hires happen, or to be able to bring people from different countries. Why do we still have job openings in so many companies where we could easily bring people over from another country that could do the job because we don't have the talent here? So, I mean, I guess I see a ton from an HR perspective, but my challenge is I don't want to speak for my community until I give them the opportunity Wednesday. So that's why I'm a little quiet.
Okay, that's fine. We just want to make sure that the wheels are turning, because I know we had so many topics, at least in that initial meeting, that I think maybe Susan and I are a little surprised that there is sort of that radio silence. Yeah.
I mean, I think part of it, just to be honest, is that, you come to these meetings and it's a lot of the same faces, and so it's a lot of the same people speaking up and therefore getting the work. And I realize, you say in your emails that it's required and it's required attendance, but at the same time, we all have full-time jobs. So I'm also hesitant to be like, oh, HR is going to do all of these things, and knowing that we have our mixer on Wednesday, I want to save time for that.
Oh, truly, I know when we've had meetings before, we have potential dates held on the calendars for HR topic-driven forums. And it doesn't all have to be front-loaded. The year extends beyond May and June, so we are open.
Right.
Planning ahead is the best way to get rock star speakers with just really valuable topics with enough thought, enough time, lead time. But again, what the HR group is doing is convening the HR community, polling them for what's important, and moving forward from there.
Yeah, to that end, I will not be there on Wednesday, but I would love us to be able to say, hey, and this is for all of us to think about with our independent groups, to say, when we meet, that for the next year, this is the big picture. How do we pull these things together? Or can we pull some things that fit into this? Because some things fall in and out. I just wish I could give you the answer right now.
Yeah, and I think that John Hallinan has given this feedback before at meetings, so it's good to have a pretty robust pipeline, knowing that not everything is going to happen.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's what the point of the working group co-chairs is to put on the content. And we know that you all have full-time jobs, and we really appreciate the work. But as we talked about last time, what's the point of having these monthly meetings if we all just sit here and don't get anything accomplished? So the hope is that when you come to this meeting is because you're thinking of a topic and you want to maybe flesh it out a little bit more with some of the other working group co-chairs and get a little, you know, their point of view maybe. So.
And those have been the most successful in the past, is where people have collaborated and taken a bit of a broader approach to a topic. And SEF is doing the same thing, convening the SEF, reconvening, I should say, the SEF community, and finding what's important in that corner of the universe, and what will be of greater value to the membership at large, because that's who we're talking about here as well. And CRO as well.
Yeah, so I don't know, do we want to switch gears a little bit? Because I think we're kind of focusing on trying to like fit into these buckets, but it doesn't sound like we're able to. But if we, you know, obviously the CRO market's a little bit biased, and, you know, we want to talk about the local area, because most of our small CROs are located here. But you know, maybe if we throw out some topics that we've heard about or we've thought about, maybe we can see where different groups can go back to their working groups and say, all right, these are things that, you know, maybe we fit with the CRO group, we fit with the HR group, whatever, and then we can kind of go from there on building more of a forum topic.
Yes.
Makes more sense. Because I feel like we're getting bogged down with this global aspect, but it doesn't sound like today is the day for diving in.
Well, it is what it is. I think we have our global framework. Build on it or not. But you all have things that are either wonderful as standalones or as a collaborative effort.
I think you make a great point, because I wish I was going to be there on Wednesday, but that is definitely a point for us, is that we need to explain to the folks that come, we have our HR thing on Wednesdays, explain the big picture, that yes, we want to hear what your ideas are for things. They may say, I want to talk about, you know, hiring and firing. Yeah, it might be an issue important to them, I have no idea, or contracting versus temp people, I have no idea. But at least we can say, in the big picture, it'd be great for it to fall into a global sort of theme, because we do have companies that are moving from here or moving to here, and they've got different challenges. You work in a huge company, and I'm sure that there's a culture person in your company that deals with trying to pull together a wide variety of personalities and backgrounds and try to melt them together. So I guess that's what we need to do. I wish we could give you a better answer. That's sort of what I'm trying to say.
I think from drug discovery, I think one aspect that we'll try and do, because sometimes we have some standard formats that we will present drug discovery companies. I think Steve's working on one of those of presenting a pretty good name in the Boston area. But I think what we'll try and do to fit with the theme is that each presentation we give, we'll try and encourage the moderator to, ask at least a question during that time of, you know, globalization. How do these things that are presented here, how does that fit into the topic that we're discussing? So I think we may not have a specific one that goes as a deep dive specific to this, but I think we'll try and incorporate the theme across the subsequent.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the drug discovery forums that focus on a particular company are so great. People love those. They're so successful. So that's perfect if we can intertwine this.
So this is exactly what we're looking for. You know, it doesn't have to be. Go ahead.
Right. So I think we didn't meet as a committee. We didn't meet last Friday because we had the CMO meeting that kind of bumped us there. But we'll talk this Friday. And I think the suggestion is good, is that if maybe we should go around the communities and talk about what we're working on, because then we can take back to our respective groups and say, you know, so-and-so is working on that, can we tie in with them on that? Or we might have something that somebody might want to join us on. Maybe that would help us to you know, get the calendar filled up.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Well, yes, and that in fact is our objective for this kind of meeting. That is my intention for the breakouts. But you know, it far away. You know, I know. Don?
So I'll sort of give an idea of what the BD Finance Group sort of has come up with, and I already have a connect point with what Mark had mentioned. So one of the things that we're looking at is sort of real nuts and bolts. This is sort of going back to something that I think John Hallinan helped to organize 2 years ago, which is business development term sheets and valuation methodologies, the real sort of nuts and bolts pieces of how we in our profession do deals, what are trends, what's the weighted average cost of capital people are using now. So that perspective, so that sort of bringing that sort of deep dive on that topic as a huge value add to service sort of the local BD finance community is certainly one that I'm personally working on. And connecting with your, excuse me, Mark, to your point, sort of the, perfecting the pitch, I think, has a global piece of it. Because, as an example, Tetris Genetics, we're making a decision as to do we hire a Japanese consultant to represent us, to perfect our pitch to Japanese pharma, which is a very difficult endeavor, as an example. So you can think very much in the same way. For a US-based small biotech that is looking to go beyond Pfizer and GSK as your typical targets for partnerships, and you're looking to get into specific pharma that may not be represented sort of in that perspective, perfecting your pitch, hiring a consultant, the outsourcing piece of that BD model is certainly an area where we could have some connect points. Sorry, the cat's got my throat, but the last one is simply a BD mixer. So we've had the JP Morgan event, BD mixer, the nuts and bolts valuation. The notion again for this mixer, just so everyone's aware, we're going to try to cycle through one or two of these a year, held at a pharma, sponsored to certain degrees by MassBio. Our last one was at Novartis, a great one here at NIBR. So we'll have one of those within the next 2 to 3 months in terms of just a physical, no content, but drinks, wine, beer, cheese, etc. So that's essentially what the BD committee and finance committee is working on. I don't know if Maud is still on. She's obviously heavily involved in the Bentley Forum, which is upcoming, so there's been a lot of work going into that.
That's extraordinary amount of work to get it beautifully.
And the JP Morgan download was
fantastic.
Awesome. That was a great success.
One thing around the JP Morgan we talked about briefly, but revisited, is almost the JP Morgan primer.
Yes.
So something
Yes.
for September or October, where we can almost do that as an annual event. Maybe it's EU and BD kind of combining efforts there as well.
I think that would be good.
It's perfect, the download.
So I think we have a lot of ideas, but they may not all fit within kind of global.
That's
So-
fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
It just, we were thinking that we would go in that direction because it seemed like there were a lot of suggestions from the group at some of the previous meetings. But we're not pushing you in any direction. We just want relevant content on the calendar.
Yeah, I'm writing stuff that's come. I've got millions of things that I deal with that would come up. Everything from someone that's Asian that has never had as a PhD having to speak before 10 people to give a presentation. There's challenges for that person to give that presentation on their background because a lot of times they don't know how to take credit for things personally. Okay, Americans are pretty good at it. We have that's a topic right there by itself. We're reluctant to want to say do this because what we'd love to do is to pop it out to our HR group and let them drive that, because then we'll have higher attendance. It's like your kids, if you tell them what we're going to talk about, they probably won't talk about it. But if they come up with the ideas of what we're going to talk about, we'll do a better job of talking about it. So
Sure.
I'm hoping that's what we come up with.
And it'll reconvene the community here.
Yeah.
It'll create a buzz and we'll get more and more engagement, and that's what we're looking for. That's our objective here. Yeah.
So in the SEF group, we had a really good forum back in January. The topic was a really excellent topic on leading indicators for measuring the success of your safety program. It was well attended, got the SEF community back together again, and it was well attended, and so we were pretty pleased with that. Our next one's going to be actually April 1st. It's going to be an ergonomics topic. We're actually collaborating with the Human Resources group on that. We've got some good speakers coming from Charles River Laboratories, telling a little bit about some of their experiences. We've got their occupational health nurse talking about some of the interventions they do, the assessments and interventions, and getting people back to work after injuries, as well as some of their people on the facility side and EHS side talking about the way they've adapted equipment to make it a little more user-friendly from an ergonomic standpoint. We've actually got some vendors coming to happen as well, so there'll be a little bit of a trade show feel to it, showing from some of the big lab equipment supply companies showing what they're doing in the ergonomic side of things to little niche players that are making things like pipetters and stuff like that. We've got something planned for towards the end of May 21st, of potent compounds. So how do we do hazard assessments, and how do you plan for controls around things that are virtually unknown? So brand new compounds that are being developed, the APIs, that kind of thing, and how do you set occupational exposure limits and control exposure and handling them within the laboratory, as well as how do you develop material safety data sheets and communicate that to your partners that you have to ship these materials to. So those are the things that are on the books already. We've got something planned for June, but we don't have all the topics and speakers nailed down yet. We're still working on the fall. We're thinking about kind of taking off the summer, July and August, in terms of technical, and then doing some kind of SEF mixer type of thing, just a networking, social type event. And then we want to end the year, or maybe early in 2015, do something around that new Massachusetts regulation around the hazardous materials processing. Kind of, it'll be a year now that it's affected everybody in Massachusetts, and just kind of share our experiences with it and see how people have dealt with implementing it, and maybe actually even invite a few of the fire department representatives in that are dealing with it, and see how their communities are actually dealing with it, what kind of things they're seeing when they're going out and inspecting those that had to apply for permits. So that's kind of what we have on the books. We've got, I guess, some openings in September, October timeframe, and I suppose we could look into the global issues. One area that would be important for SEF would be the regulatory side of things. Maybe it's an opportunity to partner with someone else on regulatory, because for us, the environmental and the workplace safety is one small piece of it, but then there's the various agencies that regulate the drug products and that sort of thing. And maybe we could come up with something jointly on that.
So you guys have a good calendar going.
Yes, we have quite a good calendar going, yes.
Putting us to shame.
Wow. Well, it was slow for us coming together as a committee, and then we weren't really sure what we were doing, because we kind of felt like we needed to, really.
With the mixer.
Yeah,
Maybe this may, no offense to everybody, it's just a couple days early. We're almost there.
We should have scheduled it around you. We forgot.
You screwed up.
Yes, we did. I'm sorry.
No one listens.
I'm so sorry.
But yeah, so SEF really took off. It took a little while, but then you did the mixer, you got that group engaged, you got some topics, and then you really hit the ground running.
Yeah, and now the community is engaged, and they're going to keep coming back and spread laterally. Mark?
I forget who is on the regulatory team, because I want to throw out there as a topic that is kind of in the last year or so, but it's breakthrough or fast track designation for your drug approvals.
So from Vertex, I think it was.
What's that?
Isn't she from Vertex?
I'm not certain. But I'm thinking that could be a relevant topic, but obviously needs to probably be driven by regulatory, since it's so FDA centric.
Yeah.
Giatti. It's Giatti, Bedja, and then Loudon Bozic in Shire. Who, and then the folks on it. It's Dave Hoffman from Synovian and Konstantin Linek from Nutter.
So I throw that out there as a potential suggestion for that team to consider, because I know last year, I think there was like 130 plus applications for breakthrough therapy, and only like 26 or 30 got approved by the FDA. So it's a huge deal, but I'm not quite sure all of the parameters around that particular program. But I figure if you're an early biotech company, you're kind of coming along and can get breakthrough status, it's probably pretty desirable for you. So to kind of get some more knowledge around that could be really helpful for members.
Probably get a company that's had it come in and talk about it.
Yeah.
What's that?
A regulatory person who knows about it, and then a case study about a company that did it.
That sounds great.
That sounds terrific.
Sure, they're not here, so let's sign them up for it.
Yeah, I like that.
So,
That's anything else we can do?
So Mladen is very involved in Rare Disease Day. That's coming up on Friday. And unfortunately, he's injured himself, so he's recovering from surgery. He wasn't able to make it today. And they did another panel, was it a few weeks ago? What's the GIT?
Compliance,
Compliance.
GIT did compliance, the regulatory compliance had quite an impressive panel. So yeah, there's plenty of room for that.
Yeah, and that might be something that the CRO group might be able to help out with as well.
That would be great. So Susan will definitely send a follow-up, and she'll loop your
Yes.
group in with that group.
Yeah, you know, the most important thing here is to stay in touch with each other. In an ideal world, people can come to these meetings and just start brainstorming, and ideas take shape. We understand that weather happens, life happens, life is busy. It's intense. But again, looping each other in, and almost all of the groups have regularly scheduled planning calls and meetings. If they're monthly, I know SEF has a weekly call. I think this is key. To
Can
stay
you
in
go back
touch.
to Asia while Pete's here? I just, Pete, do you have any suggestions, or does anyone, feel free if anyone does, on companies that should be represented in this?
For Asia?
Yeah.
I think we do. I mean, we've had some, we've had some suggestions that are being processed by the chairs here. So, we reached out to CABA, the Chinese American Biomedical Association. They proposed a couple speakers.
Does Alcus have an office? Alcus?
Somebody reached out, I think Angela's, Dr. Toglu's reached out and didn't get anywhere with a speaker for that.
So I think Asia's going to be.
Okay, it's shaping up.
It is.
Shaping up, yeah.
It is. And Peter Liarman from Sadhguru's, again, we're having a call tomorrow.
Latin America came together like.
I know.
Horatio.
Once we.
Hallelujah.
Once we split Latin America from Africa, somehow it all worked out very well. Now we have to deal with Africa and the Middle East.
So again, regularly planned check-in calls, circulating ideas, and then looping me into that so that I can possibly coordinate with other groups who are thinking along the same lines.
And if you think your group might need an additional co-chair, if you need a little bit of extra help, and you think you have a suggestion, let Susan know.
What if we want to get rid of one of our co-chairs?
Let me know. Just
Just quick note from drug discovery. I think we're meeting on Friday, but I think we've done so far we've done one study on animal models, and there's a second follow-up to that. So there'll be two related to that. I think Steve's working on Greg Renine. Yeah, Greg Renine, who would likely that'll come in the late fall. Just trying to schedule him is very difficult. So that's we're trying to get some bigger names in here to sponsor things. A couple things for myself. I'm trying to get something more in translational or personalized medicine. So if anybody has a passion for that area, I think that I'd be willing to work with anybody, or if you have any suggestions on companies in that area. So that's probably more for the fall, because I think that'll take me a while to get that organized. Steve just had a thought of if we could work with the legal group. I think a suggestion of maybe working on the new patent laws versus how that impacts drug discovery is a topic that we're thinking on there. So I think we also had a CSO mixer, and that worked out very well this last, was it November or December? So we'll have that one again probably about the same time next year. So we're trying to get at least 6 seminars organized throughout the year, along with everything else that we're helping out with. So that's where drug discovery is at.
No, it's great, and from academia to industry collaboration, it looks like it's going to be developed into a series. Bill Masha's been working on more. And then, thinking possibly the culmination of just academic CROs. Basically, it's what a lot of core labs are anyway, and had something like that that would be more, broadly of interest to the rest of the membership.
If I switch hats to the CRO CMO, we'll plug the symposium that we have coming up. So please be aware of that and attend. What's that? It's May 5th, okay.
Yep.
And for our annual meeting, co-chairs are able to attend for a discounted rate. So I think Susan sent you that information.
Yep, just go, when you go to register, there's a drop down and go for, it was in the email I sent, I forgot what it said, but if you need me to send you another one, I will.
I'll give some thoughts from the CRO meeting. We didn't really have a whole lot of chance to talk about it unless after I left you did. But just to throw out some ideas of things, and we literally didn't talk a lot about it. But again, kind of just because the CROs are very local, they were thinking of topics around like what is the very broad topics of, what does the cluster look like in the future? So, as pharma has changed and how, biotech is changing and how funding is changing, what will the local area, including CROs, CMOs, academia, look like to support the new models? And then a kind of an add-on to that is maybe what does innovation look like in that sense? Where it's coming out of academia or how things are being repurposed or whatever. What else was there? Things, I think, the very, very open-ended topics that, we're very forward-looking, I think, at this point. But again, didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about it. Safety group made me feel like such a loser.
Hi, it's Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
The idea of innovation regarding the CROs and the CMOs, that would be kind of a nice topic that would tie in with the topics that the Data Management and Clinical Operations Forum were coming up with. So maybe that would be something we could partner with.
That sounds really good. No, we had a great conversation last week about biostats, the SDMCT, which we have to follow up on. So there are things in the pipeline there as well. We came up with a number of ideas. Michelle, could you rattle off a couple of them? I don't have my notes in front of me.
Sure. No, I'm actually looking at your notes. So biomarker, adaptive study designs, electronic data capture best practices, questioning the impact of the new enrichment FDA guidelines, impact of new devices, so the e-health patient-reported outcomes, what's the impact on clinical trials, risk-based monitoring, so de-risking clinical trials, getting it right the first time. So all kind of along the lines of being innovative, and so it seems to tie in nicely.
It does, and it's also right for collaboration. So good thoughts. All right. Anybody else have anything to add?
So one thought, I did a lot of work with Bind for the last 4 or 5 years, and I know they've got quite a bit of work happening in Russia.
Yes.
It would be, we don't hear a lot about what's happening in Russia science. It'd be cool to see if somehow we could get them invited with the EU program, just taking a step back to that.
Maybe that's a separate little forum.
Cool.
Special interest, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, tied into that, coming back to something that you mentioned, Mark, the topic of, so you're a small biotech company here in the Commonwealth chasing capital around the world. I mean, certainly you think of who's funding outside of the usual, right? So Roost Nano, right? You think of Wellcome Trust and others that are putting significant capital into organizations that are here in the U.S. as well too. So the financing piece of it, that as a topic, what are sort of alternative sources of funding or capital that may be outside from either government governments that are looking to attract innovation to come and set up operations,
Yep.
or just
Good
the
jobs to
opposite,
their
to say,
people.
right, so that the two-way street. So I don't know if that's being addressed in any concerted way, but certainly it's a pretty fascinating topic as sort of the IPO market has heated up here. And that's another whole thing, because if you bring back Latin America, Chile, as an example, a couple of years ago, had more IPOs than the U.S. did. There was, billions of capital being raised in one Latin American company. So there's another angle piece of it that you could be thinking about. So just throw that out there for general financing. But you mentioned, what's happening in Russia, and certainly there's a lot of great innovation. I remember the delegation that came here 2 or 3 years ago. It was the highest delegation ever from that country, and they came in full force. I don't know what's happening now. I don't know. Did they get the Cambridge equivalent set up outside of Moscow? I mean,
They got the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know much science has happened over there.
Okay. So a case study there. I'm like, or to what degree that's even possible, I don't know.
Also an interesting topic. Well, what do you think? Anything else? Just throw out random ideas?
Random ideas.
Yeah,
It's
random
that time of the day.
Moving here, I think there's a company from Holland moving here, or opening an office here pretty soon, it's doing some RNA science. And there's quite a bit of work happening in Leiden, I forget what it is. And I think that would be interesting to see, why are they looking to do their clinical trials here in the States before doing it in Europe? That'd be kind of interesting, both from a regulatory standpoint and from a scientific standpoint. Are they getting the people that they want in their country, or why are they looking to go outside? These things are all interesting to me just as a person. I don't know.
Don't you think it's the reimbursement? Here we can still get paid for drugs.
A little
Not
bit.
so much in Europe.
A little bit.
So that's why I'm placing my bet. If I were sitting on that side, I would be looking at doing it here for that reason.
Reimbursement is another huge topic.
It's hard for diagnostics, though, it's the other one, right?
Oh, yeah.
To John's point, very quickly on alternative sources of capital, our Impact 2020 report that's coming out by our annual meeting definitely has touched on that, and as an area for greater exploration and exploitation, and so I think we'll have a body of information in Impact 2020 that I think could inform the creation of a forum topic area going forward, just building right off that. So I think that's a good place for us.
Who pulled that together? Is that?
Our consultant is Health Advances.
Okay, so Skip's group.
And so that is well down the tracks now. April 3rd, we'll unveil that. So there'll definitely be some things for us all, I think, to pull some ideas out of. And that area in particular, I think, is one ready for further exploration.
No, good point, and that'll be timely because it'll give us plenty of time to look at the report, look at what our objectives are, and then plenty of time to plan something for Q3.
I got more.
What's that?
I got more. There was one more thing that went through my head, which is, this is one of the things I get at parties, because it seems to be more difficult to talk about why drugs cost so much versus talking about religion these days, or politics. But more importantly, in some ways, it's hard to talk about biotech investing for the average person. And I don't know how that fits into our community here, but it's awfully difficult to explain what moves a biopharma stock to people that are outside this world. You guys are like, yeah, no kidding.
Inside.
Yeah, but I don't know how that would ever fit, but I do think we get good attendance and good interest in something like that, because I literally see both sides of the fence in this every day of the week, and I'm like, yes, but yes. I don't know how that fits, but to me, there's something there. I don't know where it fits. Certainly
Are you
in
trying to
HR.
encourage people to invest more in biotechs, like individuals in the public? Or
Not my family, but people they know.
Are they overpriced now, or is it still gonna go up? Who knows?
We're in a big bubble.
Yeah.
Keep it going. I don't know the answers.
You know, either inside or outside of the community, it's a tough call. You know, knowing too much is almost as bad as not knowing enough. That might be a good one.
Well, I mean, to that, I mean, so you're asking, the correlated to that is sort of the IPO, and I sort of jokingly said it out there, but I mean, let's have, mass buy, I mean, this is like then.
We're not doing an IPO.
Okay. Then I won't invest. But, that's another great topic. Like, let's do analysis. I mean, certainly we had, Bruce here that sort of made his prediction of sort of what's going to come out of the pipeline here. But I mean, I think that's germane. I mean, to the outside world, to the membership, that cuts across several of these disciplines. What's the profile? I mean, you look from, Genosha to, all across the board, and those that are coming in, it just, at what point this year do we sort of take a step and look at that phenomenon and sort of, critique it, analyze it, pros, cons, how long it's going to last, like, are Atlas's next 10 or 12 going to be, what's going to be the down cycle there, that's kind of, it's another sort of right topic.
It's HR related to me because I've got a lot of people who value equity.
Yeah.
Who we place into positions in companies, and we're like, yeah, you're getting, we're very careful. If they're getting depending on the position that they're accepting, we talk about the percentage of shares they're getting. If they're not getting very much, we don't talk about percentage at all. And we just talk about the total number of shares. But it's germane because that is part of what keeps people in jobs. It's a retention tool.
Right.
And it's something that people don't get, and they don't value, yet give it away. So I've got companies that we work with that are now moving towards no equity, and we're going to have you as a contractor instead. And we're just going to pay you, hourly, and we're not going to give you that equity. Well, what's the payoff and the cost for that? Do you lose someone's dedication? Do they go home after 40 hours a week and say, that's it, I'm out of here? Or do you want someone working 60 hours a week because they have the chance to make $500,000 to get financial freedom for the family? It's a real issue. People have forgotten that it's okay to make money doing this and working really hard. Or they went the other way with it, and they're just about trying to make tons of money and getting as much stock as they can. So there's both, and I think that there's a lot of confusion in the industry about how it all works, and I think it's worth. It'll be something I'm going to write down and want us to at least see.
I think that's a good personal topic as well. Like, so it's
Right.
not just like I think everybody personally probably, who hasn't been involved in that wonders what could it look like, especially where healthcare is changing too.
Well, and we're doing some programming to engage the younger employee base, so that's perfect to complement that. Because is that something they wouldn't even think about when saying yes to one or not another?
They don't get it.
Yeah, so
CEOs don't even know how to explain why, hey, listen, we're going to give you $10,000 less, save our cash, but we're going to give you another, 20,000 shares. Well,
Right, well then mixing with the different people in the company, employees who, some have been to 5, 6 different companies,
They don't
and
believe
nothing
it.
has come of stock options.
That's nothing, right?
So you're telling me you're not gonna give me cash, but you're gonna give me more stock, but,
You do.
so you get a whole mix.
You do. Yeah. Because there's not many people anymore that walk around who know. I know Bill. He's a freaking millionaire, and he went to some company and that's what he did. There's hardly those.
Everybody's got a friend.
Yeah. Right. We need one friend. Yeah.
I was gonna layer in globalization. How do we beat that?
But that is perfect. Yeah. I don't know how that fits, but a lot of these companies are global companies, or they're planning to make a drug here that is actually for another country, and that's what they're going to make the money for. Something new there.
But I think that Holly hit on something that is it's like the elephant in the room. But individuals, what do they know? How do they evaluate? How do you look at an offer? How do you look at the situation? I think that would be an extraordinary topic for a forum.
And your demographic might actually go beyond just, even the young people.
Yeah.
Because I kind of grew up in a generation where my parents had a really stable job. I was supposed to get, a pretty stable one, but there were so many other options that I don't know if I want to go there. You're like, that's a little too scary. So, younger people are even you know, they're a little bit more flexible, I think, but maybe, you know, but they certainly don't understand the landscape. So I think you'd actually get a really broad demographic with that.
Yeah, I think that sounds.
Well, we did an
topic.
equity forum.
Yeah, last
Last
August.
August.
It was probably at the higher level. I mean, it talked about kind of
Yeah.
equity awards and incentive options and non-comp options, kind of all what it looked like in a package. And that, you know what, if you're at the higher level of a company pre-IPO and you're the CEO, you know what, you probably own about 4 percentage points of the company. But it didn't talk about, you know what, if you're a scientist on the bench, what do you own?
They don't talk about dilution. They don't talk about how, like, okay, you know, now we're in a third round of financing. What do you mean I had 300,000 shares when I started in Iowa? I have 600,000 shares, but it's worth 50 cents now, you know, or whatever it might be, or 20 cents. It's very confusing.
But maybe something, as you said, like a deep dive on, you know what, biotech compensation strategies.
Yes.
So that way you're
Yeah,
covering the
that's it.
gamut. You're not just talking about kind of equity at the top levels, but what about that bench scientist or the DD person? What do they have? What do they get? How does it compare?
Yeah. Wendy Durkin actually had the idea, that idea for, we're going to find out if HR people want to hear about this, but they should, I think this is anybody should want to hear about this. But then to bring in someone from like, what's that company that does they do the money, they figure out.
Shareholder resources?
No, the ones that do salary compensation, starts with an R.
Radford.
You know, bringing in like a Radford who understands, it'll break down your PhD, 3 years of experience, this is how you fall into it.
Yeah.
A compliment.
That's huge. That's huge.
And when you announce it, I mean, if you put out an announcement for it, you could say, you know, how it relates to the scientists.
Yeah,
how it
exactly.
relates to the HR people, or, you know, like, and break it down that way, so people don't see it and say, well, I'm not really looking, you know, or, it's a little bit more personal as to why they might want to attend.
Because it's got to be important. I mean, when you think about it from the companies that raise this money, that's cash that burns a hole in their pocket. And the more they can hold on to this cash and use it for R&D, it's to their benefit. But there's some companies, I'll take an example, like you'll remember Alnara. Alnara didn't think that way. They raised their cash, they built a skeleton crew, and they built a contract team of people, and it worked out very well for them. The science didn't ship, that wasn't their fault. But it's a way of doing things. And so I guess to throw that back to styles of building companies. You know, you could say you can have skeleton crew, you can go full-time crews, and the pros and cons of that. That's really an interesting crew. But then you have the other problem is culture. So now you've got this team of 10 people that are full-time, 20 people that are contractors. Who really cares? Who doesn't care? In terms of care, when you go home after 40 hours, because you have to go home because you've worked a 40-hour week, they won't pay you overtime where they can. Does that person care as much as the person who's working 60 hours a week?
Has anybody ever done like an in-depth survey? Are virtual companies worthwhile? Do they make more money? Are they better? Do they have lower cash burn at the end of the day? If all the virtual companies cost less, but then I'm actually getting to the finish line.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever seen that analysis.
I don't know if there's been a full analysis, but I mean, I'm part of a virtual company right now, and so that we got funded 2 years ago. We have a half-time employee who's the chief scientific officer, the scientific founder, and we just started phase 2 trials today. So, you know, we've got that far with basically $7 million. So we actually haven't burned a lot of money and made some really great progress.
Yep.
Our option pool isn't a 10% or 20% option pool, it was a 6% option pool. So that way it kept the dilution a little bit lower for everybody that was kind of in there early. And you know what, we think that this virtual model is right for a certain period of time. Either you exit after phase 2, or you know what, that's when you may have to kind of build your more bricks and mortar company and building your culture. But right now, it's a project that you're moving forward in a cost-effective manner, as opposed to building kind of, I don't know, here to stay company. That's not what we're building, because we don't ever plan on taking it commercial, because someone's going to buy it. We're not good at taking things commercial. You have pharma out there that has an appetite for a pipeline. So build things to a point, build it to sell, basically. Although some have a vision, build it to commercialize, and that's great, but that's a different model.
Yep.
There's a couple of panels coming up at the CRO CMO symposium that are going to be covering just this topic as well, from different perspectives.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you have a discovery lab and you need people in there kind of doing stuff, I mean, like at Tetragenetics, you need people who have institutional knowledge on your technology to kind of keep this thing going. In other places, if you have a molecule which you need to put work at kind of Covance or at some bioanalytical labs or at a clinical site, you can do that with contractors, no, good point, Cobain, yikes.
Wow.
So, you know what, I joked with her before about Cobain, it came back to bite me. So, yes, oh my God. You're better than I am, I think I'm better than you are now. That's right.
Pretty soon, geez.
Yeah. But no, I mean, excellent, so. It's maybe something to talk about in the future symposium or future meeting is, you know what, virtual, is it relevant or how relevant and for how long?
The answer is, depends, right?
It does, it depends.
Well, like the question like the example that you gave, you said, you know, that it was a successful company, but the science didn't work out. Maybe it didn't work out because if they had built an in-house team, they would have been able to get at the problem better. So,
Maybe.
I mean, that's my question.
You don't know.
I'm not saying that there's not any examples where it doesn't work, but what is the overall, like, if you look at the statistics, what do they say? Right? I've never seen that kind of, really.
I don't think anybody's going to track how many companies are virtual and how far did they get,
Yeah.
and if they fail, why.
Yeah. I don't know if that's out there, if that exists or not.
It's hard to be a drug discovery company who thinks, if you think about the light bulb and the syringe or the pill, if you think about what's going to happen between here and there, you'll end up in a mental institution. Because so many different things can happen that it's very hard to think that's what I'm going to be here to there's very few companies. I think about, like, I go back to that sickle cell anemia story with Genzyme, the Lorenzo's oil sort of person, you get that driven individual where that's their thing. I'm going to get my kid this drug or whatever. And they drive it that way. They're not letting it go, right? Because it's really not about the money at some level. It is, but it isn't. There's this other thing driving them towards that. And like ALS, the folks that work at the ALS Therapeutics Organization here in town, I look at them as a not CFF kind of organization. They seem to be more like a drug-focused organization trying to bring products. I mean, I don't know if they're looking to eventually ship or partner things out down the road. I don't know. Flatly, same sort of mentality. You know, if they think it's good enough, they might just keep it and keep on, you know, making it make sense. There's not a right or wrong answer, I suppose. It's fun to talk about.
It is, we have a membership, we'd love to hear about it.
No, it's all good.
Susan, on that topic, it would be maybe helpful to bring back, I'm always trying to remind myself, the membership composition and change, sort of keeping the target audience in mind and keeping things germane and relevant to that group. I think that's kind of the mandate, if you will, of the co-chair is to bring that content back. So is there something where you can provide that information again in terms of, has the membership changed since last year? Is it really the same? What is the percent breakdown? Are we still looking more or less at the same ratio of different profiles that are part of MassBio?
Yeah, we can provide you, we have a slide that gives a pretty decent breakdown of all the different segments of the membership, so Susan can send that to you. I don't think it's changed drastically this year over last year.
Yep. I suspected it hadn't, but.
But, you know, the last few years, obviously, a significant growth from the CRO-CMO community. But the good news is, from a membership perspective, we're still seeing a lot of those smaller companies joining. That's great. But yeah, that'll be a helpful breakdown for you to see.
Yeah, good as backdrop information. So thanks for providing that.
Yes, if anyone thinks of any of those that type of information that would be helpful to spark ideas, or let us know.
And just making sure that emphasis is being placed in the right areas,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I mean, certainly 2020, or I imagine this global theme came out of, you know, how MassBio as a broader organization, you know, I think it's great. You've got sort of a couple pillars in, and hopefully the idea is to sort of decorate the tree, if you will, with a few more deep dives. Let the rest of us keep going in on sort of really, you know, what I'll call prime target content for our own constituents within our group. So we're making sure that we're keeping it relevant for, you know, my peers in BD and finance. So I think hopefully at the end of the day, we can sort of make sure that we're, you know, doing what the mandate is for us and keeping things pertinent and relevant and fresh.
And again, to speak to that, you know, our database is what it is. You have connections that we can't possibly know everything. We can't possibly know everybody, so we rely heavily on you as well to market these products to the people that you want in the chairs here, that you want, that need to hear what's going on, what's being presented, and that the people that you want to be speaking to. So again, we need your help in doing a better job at that.
What we can do is, once the report launches at the annual meeting, we can do a brief of it for this group as well. And hopefully, some of those points will spark ideas within the working groups.
Well, this is a great conversation. These are the kinds of conversations that go a long way. Anybody else have random thoughts?
Don't look at me, I've given you enough right
So it looks like we'll have an early dismissal then, right?
Well, there's still food back there. What I will say though is I will send around an updated contact list. We have new members for our working group family. Whoops. Forgive me if I missed anything. I know Drug Discovery, HR, SEF, DD Finance, FDD are regularly meeting, calling, and checking in and keeping in touch with me. I guess CRO, CMO, we should set up some kind of schedule among the.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe we can make it a part of the monthly meeting. Yeah.
And I, depending on how far away it's, I can either be there or call in. And then, of course, you as, that's basically your steering committee.
Yep.
And then you as co-chairs are partners in bringing all that programming. I think we're in good shape. Great. We'll look forward to talking to you all on our various meetings. And any time we're going to set aside a conference room here, just let me know. We can do that. Awesome. Thank you all.
I won't say that. I think you're right to say that. The way to interpret that is my work group is totally.
Thanks, everyone.
And I need to make. Thank
you.
My shoes.
Bye.
You're the first person in this conference. Please stay on the line. To turn off the music, press 1.
No, she's our first day of the job.
Oh, is it really?
That must be a
No, it's Friday.
huge shame. That is going to be a huge shame.
I'll get split notes.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. At least it's a nice company.
She'll love it.
Yeah, it's a nice company.
She's been on that
Yeah.
side for a long time.
I don't know what the definition is.
Yeah. Well, I know Mark, they organized, new model.
Good order that.
It's her first day, so I can just put it to, yeah.
She
I'll be late, I don't know
got
what
a
time
pie.
I'm coming, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
somewhere
They're
between
only
they
focused on
they basically manage to practice as well. So there is a physical place or probably space for some of those come in, so.
I actually tried to, I was looking at, I have to, I guess, determine
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the ones coming out of that list, you look at this before they, I think it's any of those ones that are in there. Yeah. So.
There are some questions.
And looking at, again, for the last 3 years.
They're actually not but when it comes to
Most of them actually have-
There's been.
Now-
then I switch.
So,
Yeah. I don't know if you can spell it out in a nice way, but.
I think that's 3 years of BC deals, and is that what zero really represents?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think the question is legitimate. Who's tracking it? I don't know.
Who's Jacqueline? That's a virtual person. Yeah, I don't think anybody is. I mean, it would be a good,
I mean, I'm sure the VCs are from their own portfolio perspective, but they're not tracking.
Right, yeah.
Good, Tan, I'm sorry, I gotta run, especially people that are going out for things here.
Hey, yeah.
She is here.
It's a cold room.
So there are some examples.
Who was it for?
Right,
Well, I guess it's, yeah, well, no one's going to see it.
some debate on how this is panning out, but that might be something we can offer somebody, even
So
if
I've got a
it's,
couple of clients I'm
even if
hoping
it's
to
a moderator.
Tier 1 is their antivirus, so it's like, go after
Because they're going to
functional assets.
Yeah, right.
I was trying to help somebody from India, but she can't come to it.
Oh,
So we're looking at assays. Protein doesn't have activity. So our pipeline is.
He's here in June.
Tell those Latin American people to switch.
Antivirus.
Yeah, all right, well, that's good. Yeah, it's a good way to get back into it. I kind of had.
That's good, yeah.
I know, I should kind of, I spent so much time convincing Charles River to be a member and then like, became member. They were a while back. And then they, so basically nobody, yeah, so basically nobody ever utilized the membership.
I got something at 10:30 and something at 1:30.
Okay, so after 2:30 basically?
Yeah, they say,
So
hey,
Thursday, I think that's 27th, after 2:30.
You know, I have, especially.
After 2:30 p.m. And, or then you're gone, I can't do it. You're going on Friday this week or you're around on Friday?
Friday morning I'm around.
Okay, so we could do it Friday AM, Friday AM, from maybe like 8:30 to 11.
Till noon.
I have something at 11, so.
Flight's going out in the afternoon,
So
so I
anyway,
gotta get
I
home.
said, I think that's a little, I think to put yourself.
Yeah, because you fly out this Friday. Yeah, I fly out this Friday, you're back with next Thursday?
Next Thursday.
Okay, yeah, I'm back on Monday night, and then I'm gone again next Friday. So, and then,
Anything that's a big binder. So
I mean, the worst case Thursday you're back?
Some people have taken advantage of it, you know. I've gotten HR to find like aerobic positions in some cases on the website, like, you know, it's like.
That'll be my next.
So.
Building that out. If you want to cross anything.
Problem is.
Yeah.
Staying out.
Yeah, but it's.
well, let me throw it out there to,
No, they did,
to the
because one
panelists.
person in marketing that was making the
And
decision.
essentially, it'll be going through kind of our overview,
She's a
saying,
net
hey, you know what,
she's not a
Pedro from
networker,
Deloitte,
she doesn't know
like,
anything about drug discovery,
and
she really doesn't. She
And
just
you know what,
uses my
Marcus
budget
and
to
Dave,
make
you
it
guys
smaller,
kind of
so
roll
I'm
up
like,
your enterprise.
oh, you
Can
two
pull
sales reps
together
don't use this?
a
Okay, well then I'm making my
slides talking
decision.
about
And I was like, well, that's a good decision.
Great. And, we'll make sure, ask them to kind of get those slides in, because it seems like 2 days before the event.
Great. Maybe ask them to come up with a couple of questions if they think things that are really pertinent in case
Yeah.
stuff isn't flowing, we can kind of use those questions, right?
Right.